So it's lovely to be here, actually. As I say, I've taken part in Kimberly Seldon's courses since '09, always sitting obviously on the other side of the fence, as it were. So this is a little bit different for me. But today is really just about sharing with you the sort of the things I've discovered sort of along the path from being an interior designer in the United Kingdom to moving to Canada, setting up my own firm here, and then somehow becoming co-founder of Design Docs, which is a business management software tool for independent designers like you and I. So as I say, I'd previously worked in the UK. I was a designer there for 10 years. And I was eventually a senior designer and a buyer at a lovely sort of independent boutique firm. Now, when I worked back in the UK, it was fairly standard. You tended to work from a larger shop front. So my job was purely sourcing and designing. Everything that happened in the back office happened in the back office. And I never went there because I didn't have to. It sounds really crazy, but I didn't really have to know. My job was to sell, and I was really good at it. I'm really good at picking up on what people want, even if they don't know what they want. I get it. I convert sales really, really quickly, and that was all I needed to do back there because I had a salesperson, I had a bookkeeper, I had an accountant. We even had our own construction wing, so they would deal with that side of the thing. We didn't track or bill for our time, and we sold at manufacturer's recommended retail price. It all sounds really simple, but I always wanted to run my own business. Then, as luck would have it, I ended up going to St. Lucia, of all places, on vacation, and bumped into a Canadian at the top of a hill, and ended up moving to Canada sort of 9 months later after meeting him. So I moved here, and I had been to Designer's Walk, and I thought, it's fabulous here. This, Canada's designed for independent designers. This is amazing. You've got all these resources at your fingertips. So I thought, fabulous. This is what I'll do. So, because this is what we do, don't we? We lovingly, I just thought, I'm going to be Kelly Wessler. I'm just going to stroke fabrics and look perfect all day, because that is what it's all about. But we know it's not. But the truth is, when we're setting up our businesses, and certainly for me, you focus on the things that people are going to see, and certainly the things that people are going to judge us by. It's a pretty judgmental business, I think. We sort of invest in our websites. For me that was critical because it sort of showed that I had credibility, I had some background. I spent money in designing a beautiful business card and a letterhead because that showed my personal style. Let's face it, I wanted a really nice handbag, so when I went to Designer's Walk, I fitted in with everybody else who was there. And so we have all these things to sort of armor ourselves up against, so that when we meet with our clients, when we meet fellow designers, we fit in. But then I quickly found out, as my business, luckily enough, really started to gain momentum, I really didn't have any idea how to run a design business. The reality is, if you're running a small design business, as 75% of us in the industry are, you're probably spending the majority of your time managing the flow of information in and out of your company. But as an industry as a whole, we really don't talk about that side of our business. It's not particularly pretty, it's not particularly sexy, it just kind of happens. And no one really sort of talks about it. And we certainly don't tend to invest a lot of money in thinking about the processes or the things that we need to do in order to guarantee that our clients get, not only our clients, but our clients get that dream result that we've spent hours designing for them, but also to ensure that we actually return a profit at the end of the job. The two don't sort of tend to go hand in hand. I was very lucky in that the Canadian that I met at the top of the hill, who I moved to Canada for, turned out to be a chartered accountant, which was like fabulous. Because if he'd been like a cameraman or a fisherman or something, like, I would either be sort of mentally insane by now, and I certainly wouldn't be in business anymore. Because without him sort of looking at my business one day, and of course I'd met this man on vacation, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm an interior designer, I've been doing this for years, you know, and then he looks in my office one day and says, is this what you do? And I'm like, yeah, this is what I do, you know, and there's paperwork everywhere, you know, it's a complete pickle. And so he took it on board to sort of try and fix me. It's normally girls that do that to boys, but we did it the other way around. So he took it on board to sort of try and fix me, and just to sort of try and focus and sort of try and get me into some sort of organize. And no sooner we sort of started working on the processes within my company, I suddenly thought, golly, you know, I've got really good girlfriends who are designers also, who I know are having the same problems as me. It's very hard as an independent to sort of grow your business on a scale that really makes it profitable and worthwhile if you don't have all the checks and measures in place. It's really, really hard. And even if you are able to hire you know, a bookkeeper or an office manager or an admin assistant, ultimately it's still you who's solely responsible for setting your prices, which determine our profits, which determine if we're ever going to retire or not. And if we don't have the ability to sort of look into our numbers and understand them and to readily get a grasp on where we are, we have no idea where we're going. You know, we're like a ship without a rudder. So Dean decided I was not as big enough a problem. He decided he was going to fix the whole industry. So we decided to go and find a couple of software developers who are JD and Ian, who are with us today, to see about sort of scaling this up and turning this into a software solution for all. So today's seminar is really, I'm going to sort of try and scale this down to sort of really the 5 key things that I learned along the road from sort of being sort of blissfully ignorant to now being, you know, in the stage where I am now. So the first thing I learned was the importance of tracking and allocating your recoverable expenses. It sounds really exciting, I know, but honestly, this alone is it's amazing. I used to be really bad at billing my clients for like shipping and handling. Client would come to me, would get a really nice drapery order, they're spending $4,000. I've maybe got 2 fabric suppliers, so the delivery charges are maybe around sort of $45, $50. It's too much hassle to track it, to bill it, to invoice the client. And it felt kind of cheap, because I'm thinking, this person's just spent a few $1,000s on draperies, and what, I need another $30 for delivery? No, forget about it. I never used to bill for that. Does anybody else do the same? Do we all just sort of, yeah, just kind of, and the same came with with parking and mileage, all these little things that were proving just to be too difficult to track and too time consuming, and they also just seemed so unimportant that I didn't track them. And then what happened was one day I was able to sort of do the math on this, and I just about had a heart attack. In my office, a recoverable expense are things like shipping and handling, duties and sales tax, deliveries, parking, photocopies, postage and couriers, gas, and long-distance calls. And what I learned to my horror was it's the sort of cumulative cost of absorbing all these little charges that can result to us at the end of the year saying to our accountants, how much did I make? Or my profits, what percentage? It's all these little things. And to put this into some sort of reality, in 2011, my business had costs of $7,300 under this sort of recoverable bucket. Now, $7,300 is purely my costs. So if you have an assistant who's driving and parking and charging you for those expenses, your costs will be considerably higher than that. I'm fortunate enough, I live around sort of 15, 20 minutes away from most of my vendors. If you live further away, you're driving more, you're parking more. Again, your costs are probably going to be higher. And so what I sort of came to my horror was that, golly, if I'm not really able to keep track of this, if I'm not going to bill for these charges, this is really the impact it's having on my business. So if I don't track and if I don't bill for these recoverable expenses, it's a little like having a sale of $73,000, where I'm receiving a designer discount of say 20%. I'm splitting that with my client. So my client saved $7,300. I in theory should be making $7,300, but guess what? I'm making nothing because I haven't tracked my recoverable expenses. That's the impact this has on you. Or if you're selling higher value goods where you should be making sort of 25% margin, it's like selling $29,000 of product and making nothing. Alternatively, depending on your hourly rate and your average billable hours per week, it could equate to working for 1 or 2 or 3 weeks for free per year. It gets kind of depressing, the further in you go, and all of a sudden, all those little costs suddenly don't seem so little after all. So we decided to look at this and go, okay, well, what actually is going to make tracking achievable? And there was really 3 main things. First and foremost, I had to have it in my contract that I was going to bill my clients for these items. I always had it in my contract, but I just wasn't the best at following through. Secondly, I also put it in my client proposals. I'm never that particularly comfortable just talking about money with clients. I'm getting better at it because I have to, but it still doesn't sit that comfortably with me. So I really let footnotes in my proposals do the difficult talking for me. I find it really helps. So I also highlight in my client proposals that shipping and handling will be billed as incurred. They may have read that paragraph in my contract, but just in case they've forgotten about it, again, it's just another little highlight here. I will also discuss with them up front about what I roughly think the costs are going to be. If I'm doing an entire floor of a home, I know those costs could be $1,000, $1,500. I'll plant that seed in their head so that when they get a fee invoice from me and there's suddenly a disbursement line of $800, they're not freaking out. Because we've had the chat and they can remember, okay, this equates to roughly half of what she said. Okay, I've got it. I might not like it, but I know where this is coming from. And the third thing was to make tracking really, really easy. Now, in order to make the invoicing simple, your tracking and your invoicing all sort of have to flow together. And this can be done in Excel. I've got examples here from how we've done this in Design Docs. So what we have is JD designed this little sort of punch card thing for us, which I personally love because I just like the scale of it and the size of it. And how we do this is you'd put in your date, you'd put in what type of expense it was. You can offset that to a vendor. You can put even what kind of company credit card did you use cash? Was it a company credit card you used? Did your admin assistant use her credit card? You pop it in there. You can assign it to a project. You put your total in, and then you put the description in. As soon as you save that, it immediately lands on your client invoicing. So all and any disbursements that your client has waiting to be invoiced are just sitting there. And what I found about this is if they're just sitting there, suddenly to charge for $3.96 worth of parking at Designers Walk, you can do it because I normally just now add things there, let them accumulate, and then at the end of the month, I add them all together and pop them on the fee invoice. It's very, very simple. You can see here it says sort of project expenses 2522. That's a sort of cumulative total of multiple little disbursement charges. If a client says to me, Gillian, can I have a breakdown of the 2522? I can give that to them. But this, for me, I found to be a really easy way, and it keeps me on top of it. Because this is all being tracked for me, and I've got this constant reminder saying, you have this outstanding, you have this still to be invoiced, it just makes it really, really easy.